On the 20th of May 2021, the Prince of Wales sat down alone in front of a single camera and delivered a statement written entirely in his own words. He did not issue a standard palace press release. He did not take questions from journalists or consult royal publicists. The whole broadcast ran for under 2 minutes, yet those 2 minutes fundamentally dismantled decades of carefully curated royal mythology. The man speaking was visibly holding himself together, his voice tight with a mixture of grief, sorrow, and deep institutional anger. Crucially, William did not talk about a car crash in Paris, nor did he talk about a state funeral. He talked directly about his parents' marriage. He looked into the lens and stated that the fear, the paranoia, and the profound isolation he remembered from his mother's final years had been deliberately manufactured by outside forces who sought commercial gain. He declared that these deceitful actions had contributed significantly to making his parents' relationship worse and had irreparably hurt countless people. For nearly 40 years, the world viewed the collapse of Charles and Diana's union as a tragic tabloid melodrama. But William's solemn testimony exposed the chilling reality: it was an institutional catastrophe whose scars remain etched into the British crown to this very day. To understand the depth of the tragedy, one must return to the 29th of July 1981. 750 million people across 74 nations watched what global broadcasters heralded as the undisputed wedding of the century. Lady Diana Spencer, barely 20 years old, stepped into St. Paul's Cathedral in an extravagant ivory silk taffeta gown with a dramatic 25-foot train. To a watching world hungry for romance, it appeared to be the ultimate realization of a classic fairy tale. Yet behind the golden carriages, the ceremonial fanfares, and the cheering crowds, the foundations were hollow. Charles and Diana had met fewer than 13 times before their engagement was formally announced. They were complete strangers separated by a 12-year age gap, starkly divergent world views, and profound emotional incompatibility. When an interview famously asked the newly engaged couple if they were in love, Diana eagerly replied, "Of course," while Charles chillingly added, "Whatever in love means." That casual, detached remark was not a momentary lapse in judgment. It was an ominous foreshadowing of a union built not upon emotional devotion or mutual security, but upon dynastic duty and institutional expectation. From the very first week of their marriage, Diana realized she was trapped in an impossible dynamic. The persistent ghost of Camilla Parker Bowles lingered over every private room and palace corridor. Just days before walking down the aisle, Diana had stumbled across a gold chain bracelet on Charles's desk engraved with the letters G and F, representing Charles and Camilla's intimate nicknames, Gladys and Fred. During their royal honeymoon aboard the royal yacht Britannia, Diana watched in disbelief as photographs of Camilla fell out of Charles's personal diary, and noticed him wearing cufflinks shaped in the entwined letter C, a gift from Camilla. Whenever Charles retreated into his study at Highgrove, Diana listened in agonizing silence as he spent hours on the telephone speaking in hushed tones to the woman he had loved before her, and the woman he would never truly abandon. Diana was expected to accept this unspoken arrangement as normal royal tradition. Instead, it became an unbearable psychological torment that eroded her self-worth and fueled an intense, desperate hunger for validation. Inside the cold, echoing apartments of Kensington Palace, Diana found herself utterly alone. The British royal establishment operated under a rigid, generational code of emotional suppression where vulnerability was perceived as unforgivable weakness. When Diana struggled with severe bulimia, overwhelming anxiety, and debilitating postnatal depression following the birth of Prince William in 1982, she was met not with medical compassion, but with bureaucratic annoyance. Senior courtiers viewed her emotional turmoil as an inconvenient disruption to the royal calendar. Charles, possessing no emotional vocabulary for dealing with his wife's distress, recoiled from her tears. He viewed her crying episodes not as cries for help, but as irrational theatricality. He retreated deeper into his intellectual solitude, hunting trips, and long weekends away, leaving his young wife stranded in an emotional desert. Diana was expected to smile flawlessly before global television cameras while silently crumbling behind heavy mahogany doors. By 1983, during their landmark tour of Australia, the private fracture spilled into the public domain. Diana's instinctive warmth, her tactile empathy, and her natural elegance transformed her into a global phenomenon. Crowds numbering in the hundreds of thousands chanted Diana's name, openly groaning with disappointment when Charles walked down their side of the street instead of his wife. For an heir to the throne raised from birth to believe he was the central figure of the royal universe, the overwhelming adoration directed at his wife ignited bitter professional jealousy. Rather than taking pride in Diana's success, Charles felt eclipsed and diminished. The marriage devolved into an undeclared civil war known inside palace walls as the War of the Waleses. Joint engagements became exercises in cold hostility, where forced smiles vanished the instant television spotlights turned away. The couple established separate bedrooms, separate households, and separate staff, communicating only through hostile formal memos. Standing directly in the crossfire of this bitter matrimonial warfare was a young Prince William. Growing up within the tense, unpredictable atmosphere of Kensington Palace, William was forced to take on adult emotional responsibilities long before his time. He became his mother's primary confidant, protector, and emotional anchor. Former royal protection officers and close friends recalled the heartbreaking image of a 10-year-old William gently pushing tissues under the locked bathroom door while Diana wept inconsolably on the other side, whispering, "Don't worry, Mummy, I will look after you." He absorbed her deepest anxieties about palace conspiracies, her fear of wiretapping, and her heartbreak over Charles's rejection. At the same time, William witnessed his father's profound frustration and cold withdrawal. It was a crushing burden placed upon a young boy who loved both his parents deeply, yet was forced to watch them tear each other apart in the full glare of global publicity. In June 1992, the royal facade collapsed completely with the publication of Andrew Morton's earth-shattering book, Diana, Her True Story. The book laid bare the darkest secrets of the royal household, Diana's desperate suicide attempts, her severe eating disorders, the palace's calculated indifference, and Charles's ongoing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. While Buckingham Palace initially dismissed the revelations as malicious tabloid fiction, the horrifying truth soon emerged. Diana herself had recorded the secret audio tapes, smuggling them out of Kensington Palace through her trusted friend Dr. James Colthurst. Diana felt she had no other choice. She believed the palace machinery was actively working to paint her as mentally unstable to justify an institutional dismissal. By speaking her truth to Morton, Diana broke the royal code of omerta, ensuring that the fairytale could never be rebuilt. The royal crisis deepened into unprecedented public humiliation with the emergence of secretly intercepted telephone tapes. In August 1992, the Squidgygate recordings were published, broadcasting Diana's intimate conversations with her close friend James Gilby to the world. The audio exposed Diana's profound loneliness, her tears, and her growing paranoia that she was being monitored by British intelligence. Just months later, in January 1993, the Camillagate recordings surfaced. The intensely private, excruciatingly embarrassing late-night conversations between Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles were published verbatim across global newspapers. The dignity of the heir to the throne was demolished overnight. In December 1992, Prime Minister John Major was forced to stand before the House of Commons to formally announce that the Prince and Princess of Wales were legally separating, ending any illusion of a royal reconciliation. The conflict soon escalated into a televised public relations war. In June 1994, Prince Charles took part in a primetime national documentary with Jonathan Dimbleby, attempting to rehabilitate his damaged reputation. When Dimbleby asked Charles directly if he had remained faithful and honorable to his marriage vows, Charles offered a candid and devastating admission, "Yes, until it became irretrievably broken down, us both having tried." That very same evening, Diana executed the most brilliant counter-offensive in media history. She arrived at the Serpentine Gallery in London wearing a stunning, figure-hugging, off-the-shoulder black silk cocktail dress designed by Christina Stambolian, an ensemble instantly christened the Revenge Dress. The following morning, Charles's solemn televised confession was buried on page 5, while Diana's radiant, defiant image conquered every newspaper front page across the globe. In November 1995, Diana delivered what proved to be the most destructive blow of her life in an extraordinary secret interview on BBC's Panorama with journalist Martin Bashir. Watched by 23 million viewers in the United Kingdom and hundreds of millions worldwide, Diana looked directly into the camera with heavy, kohl-rimmed eyes and uttered the defining sentence of her legacy: "Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." She openly admitted her own infidelity, questioned Charles's capacity to become king, and described the royal household as an antagonistic force determined to destroy her. But behind the television screens lay a dark deception. As Prince William would later reveal, Bashir had secured the interview by showing Diana's brother forged bank statements, falsely claiming that her closest staff were paid spies monitoring her every move. This manufactured deceit preyed on Diana's vulnerability, deepening her paranoia and alienating her from those who genuinely sought to protect her. Following the explosive Panorama broadcast, Queen Elizabeth II determined that the institutional damage was no longer tolerable. In December 1995, the sovereign took the unprecedented step of writing separate, decisive letters to both Charles and Diana, commanding them to proceed with an immediate formal divorce. In August 1996, the decree absolute was finalized, legally ending their 15-year marriage. While Diana received a substantial financial settlement of £17 million and retained her residence at Kensington Palace, she was stripped of the prestigious style of Her Royal Highness. For Diana, losing the Her Royal Highness title was a deeply humiliating blow, a deliberate institutional sign that she had been expelled from the royal firm. Seeing his mother heartbroken and weeping over the loss of her status, a 14-year-old Prince William famously embraced her and promised, "Don't worry, Mummy, I will give it back to you one day when I become king." Now stripped of her official royal protection officers, Diana spent her final 12 months navigating an increasingly dangerous media landscape on her own. She channeled her energy into high-profile humanitarian missions, walking through live landmine fields in Angola and embracing dying patients in hospital wards across the world. Yet beneath her humanitarian achievements, she was relentlessly stalked by paparazzi who tracked her every move with aggressive intensity. On the fateful night of the 31st of August 1997, leaving the Ritz Hotel in Paris alongside Dodi Fade, their vehicle was pursued at breakneck speed through the city streets by photographers on motorcycles. Entering the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the car lost control and crashed violently into a concrete pillar. The catastrophic impact claimed Diana's life at just 36 years old, sending shockwaves across the globe and plunging Britain into an unprecedented wave of public mourning. The image of 15-year-old Prince William walking with his head bowed behind his mother's gun carriage on the 6th of September 1997 remains one of the most haunting moments in modern royal history. Alongside his brother Harry, his father Charles, his grandfather Philip, and his uncle Charles Spencer, William was forced to endure a harrowing public ordeal watched by over 2 billion people worldwide. In the painful years of grief that followed, William was tasked with an impossible psychological balance, preserving and honoring his mother's beloved memory while maintaining his loyalty to his father and preparing for his own future destiny as king. He carried the scars of his childhood inside, privately resolving that he would never permit the toxic pressures, emotional detachment, and destructive infidelities of his parents' marriage to repeat in his own life. In May 2021, an independent judicial inquiry conducted by former Supreme Court Justice Lord Dyson published its comprehensive report into the methods used to secure the 1995 Panorama interview. The findings confirmed the darkest suspicions that Prince William had harbored for over 2 decades. Lord Dyson concluded that the BBC had fallen woefully short of its foundational standards of honesty and transparency, finding that Martin Bashir had engaged in calculated deceit and forged official bank documents to exploit Diana's vulnerable psychological state. The report proved that the overwhelming paranoia and suspicion that isolated Diana from her family in her final years was systematically fueled by unethical media manipulation. For Prince William, the report provided long overdue vindication for his mother, proving that she had been deliberately deceived and betrayed by institutions that owed her truth and protection. Today, as the Prince of Wales and the direct heir to the British throne, William embodies the enduring lessons of his parents' tragic history. His own marriage to Catherine, founded upon nearly a decade of genuine friendship, mutual respect, and emotional partnership, represents a conscious, definitive break from the royal mistakes of the past. William has fearlessly redefined royal parenting, placing his children's mental health and emotional stability far above antiquated royal protocol, ensuring that Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis grow up in an atmosphere of unconditional love and open communication. By having the courage to break his silence and confront the painful truth of Charles and Diana's marriage, William has honored his mother's memory, confronted institutional failure, and established a compassionate, modern foundation for the future of the British crown.